I've never been so glad to see a house. Stepping out of the car and up to the mansion meant the end of the uncomfortable ride, and I could finally take a deep breath of fresh air. The beauty of the place never fails to make me gaze and wonder every time I see it as well. Mrs. Wright moves towards the door, keys in hand, and I can already hear Mr. Wright plotting.
All right, Johans, we're going to go in, but I want you to look around the place. Familiarize yourself with it. Know every nook and cranny, every inch of the lot. Go and see where we can put that vineyard and the other things we talked about. We'll want to know where to station security as well, so go around the perimeter and figure it out.
Scout the property and circle the perimeter on foot. You do know this is 46 acres of land, sir.
Well, you are not driving a car over the grass. Put those long, spidery legs of yours to good use. I didn't hire you to stand around and look intimidating. Go, mush.
Someday I'll have to ask Johans, can he even stand and tolerate the man? Why doesn't he just quit? Certainly the pay can't be that good. Even I'm a bit put off by the mutual employer, and the only thing that keeps me from bailing is the fact that we've already signed a contract. At least I'll be working with them during the duration of the project. He works with them every day.
Sometimes I think you hired me to make me suffer for your amusement.
Someday I'd ask. I feel a bit bad for him. If it's any consolation, he'll be away from Mr. Wright, if only for a little while. We're able to enter the mansion after a bit of standing out there in the sun. This wretched, strange sunlight that is far too alien and rare. There had been a bit of a problem with the missus not knowing which keys was which. The first item on the agenda would be the grand staircase. It seemed sturdy during the open house, but closer inspection might say otherwise. There are no obvious marks of damage, nor wear and tear, probably rethreaded during renovation. Picking under the grand carpet, the wood is properly installed with the bark placed down to prevent cupping. The carpet itself could use a vacuum, though. Structural conditions, from what I can see without actually dismantling anything, look to be in good shape, and the handrails and support posts are firm. The work on it should be commended. I can't look much more into the rest of the floor, however, because Mr. Wright starts to hurry us into checking the dining hall.
So, what do you think? Certainly we can't turn this area into a garage.
It's Jacobean architecture. I'd say these would be pilasters and not buttresses, but you never really know. They really liked mixing up these elements. You could say it was pretty avant-garde at the time. We might hit a support beam if we're not careful.
And in layman's terms?
From what I see here, we could risk great damage to the house if we try to turn the dining hall into a garage.
The man didn't look too pleased at this. There's a look of disappointment before he sighs and looks around the place with an air of defeat. When he moves to speak, I dread another unreasonable demand. Again.
Mr. Stair dining hall, then. But if I may have another request instead, at least spruce the place up with some flowers, some plants, or something. It feels so old and dead in here.
Because there's something old and dead in there.
That's hardly unreasonable. Daffodils are a must, I presume.
The look that passes between the two of them, there's a genuine look of fondness there. This is the first time I've seen such an exchange between the two of them. If anyone are to see them, this is not me, this is the writing on the game. If anyone were to see them like this, there is a little doubt that they loved each other.
Of course, and I want a garden full of them. Now, if you excuse me, I'd like to look at the rest of the house. I'll just be around here downstairs, if anybody needs me.
That leaves Mrs. Wright
He's
and I.
quite fond of them, you know.
I can imagine. He looked terribly upset when we told him he can't have his garage.
I meant the daffodils. We always have a vase full of them in every house we own. I'd like to think they may be about his mother. He never talks about her. I don't even know her name. He likes to flatter, claim that they remind him of me, but he's always loved the flowers, even before we married.
Much like the piano, I didn't take him for a person who liked flowers. Daffodils least of all. What's next? Am I going to find out Mr. Wright saves kittens from burning
I'll go
buildings?
And snoop about upstairs. You go and do whatever it is that you have to do.
When she goes without even asking if I need her here, I'm left standing to stare at the walls. Really, I don't need to do a thorough inspection of the building itself. It isn't really part of the interior designer's job, but the architecture in me is committed to doing this task with every project. If I'm going to make a living space that both form and function, I might as well make sure that the entirety of it is safe for my clients. Since I'm already here, I roam around the dining hall to check things off my punch list, if you will. But when it's time to move on, I hesitate. Mr. Wright said he would be somewhere around here on the ground floor, and I really didn't want to be alone with Whiskey. I have to look through the place eventually, sure. But on the other hand, I can do it later when he's gone. I can go upstairs first if I want to. I've already seen enough of this floor during the open house. Of course, I know this is just a convenient excuse. I just don't want to be in the same room as Whiskey anytime soon. So I might as well go upstairs first. The banister on the ground staircase landing is solid and at a proper height. Any lower and they would be trouble. There's a small catch on the carpet though, but as long as nobody tries to run down the stairs until it gets fixed, things should be alright. Oh, that's why she tripped. And the stained glass art. Restored, no doubt, in the image of the last lady and the Lord of Ermengarde. It was supposed to be, until Lady Charlotte's fiancé was brutally murdered. By a witch of all things, from what I've read. You'd think the historians of this place will be a lot more scrutinizing, filtering out stuff like that. I'm amazed they bothered with it instead of replacing it with some generic cookie-cutter design. This entire piece alone would have cost roughly 500 or even £1 million. Lady Charlotte Ermengarde and her beloved. Looking at the mosaic, it's not too far stretched of the imagination to believe that the depicted images could be Mr. and Mrs. Wright. It can be easily assumed as such if one doesn't know the history of the mansion. Really, a place like this should be protected by the government as a landmark, but what can I do about it? Walking to the east wing, I try to go into the theater, but is met with an obstacle. The obstacle is that it is locked doors. 2 doors. 2. And both of them are locked. I'd be frustrated, would be, if I already hadn't snuck off while the Wrights were having their little business meeting with Miss Cooper before taking a peek. With what Mr. Wright wanted, we'd have to install a power projector, the type that they use in cinemas, and a projection screen. The seats would have to be reupholstered if they're to be any comfortable, and the walls will have to be covered in dark material, paint, wallpaper, or install wall-to-wall carpeting. Really, all of the rooms I could be jealous of, it is this one. I could just picture myself in there watching old kung fu flicks on a weekend-long marathon. Makes me wonder what kind of movie Mrs. Wright would like. Rom-coms, perhaps. Her husband, on the other hand, I'd rather not think about it. In the middle of my notations and planning, I didn't even realize that I'm not alone until I'm caught standing in front of a locked door like a fool.
Were you meaning to go in there? I'm afraid we won't be able to open it up today.
Oh well, I wanted to, but it's fine. I can still survey the rest of the place.
Apologies, but the key was missing when they were handed over. They told us that they'd get right back to us with it.
What? But aren't they supposed to hand over all the keys once property changes hands? That can be grounds to file a complaint.
They were already kind enough to let us move in so early. There's no need to raise a fuss about it. Worst comes to worst, we can call for a locksmith.
The air is heavy and somber when she grows quiet and glances out the window, out towards the vast expanse that surrounded what would be their house. Their home. Then she looks at me with a sigh and a bitter smile.
Flowers. Yellow flowers. Daffodils, dandelions, and sunflowers and the sort all up front. Just a whole garden of them. They'll make the house look lovely, won't they?
Of course. A garden is a wonderful addition to any home.
As I say this, her eyes roam over me, scrutinizing and thoughtful. I have told back the shiver that threatens to run down my spine at being inspected so closely.
It must be nice.
We're still talking about the gardens, yes?
I mean, not having to worry about what another person thinks of you.
What do you mean by that?
She lifts her hand and points to her wedding ring before it falls listlessly to her side.
Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I didn't marry Luke. There'll be no fights about walk-in closets or silly helipads. I could do with this place as my heart desires until there's nothing but content. Then again, I wouldn't have bought this place if it wasn't a gift for him. I probably wouldn't even be in Luxbourne if it wasn't for him.
I'm not sure if it's the audio or if if I have an issue with my thing because it keeps kind of like stuttering at like random intervals. But I know it's been having some other issues, so I think I might need to replace my earbuds soon.
Maybe I would have moved to London, Manchester, or Birmingham. I might have even left the country altogether. France, Germany, Spain, Canada, Sweden, even America. The possibilities would have been endless.
I don't know what to say to this. What is there
I'm sorry,
to say?
I must sound so petty and ungrateful. I do love him. So very much, even if he can be a bit difficult at times.
Oh no, not at all. I'm just confused why you're telling me this, of all people.
Just a whim, I think. Just flights of fancy, that's all. Don't you ever think about one decision you've made in your life and wonder how much would change if you chose to do things differently?
I try not to dwell on the past, ma'am.
The key word is try. Of course, thinking of the past brings up too many ghosts. I have not worn this in my ear in a long time because I'm not supposed to put them in this ear because of some issues I have. And like just hearing how that sounded was very interesting. Memories of her. And I do wonder what would change if I just said yes when she asked. When she asked for me. Maybe she'd still be with me. I return to the present. Just like I said, I try not to dwell on the past. Her worry seems simple enough. I mean, it doesn't have to be as difficult as she makes it out to be, right?
Why don't you decide on your own?
I meant nothing against Mr. Wright, of course. The whiskey buggered me to no end. By law, she would be owner of the house. Well, unless they signed a joint property ownership anyway, which is a rare thing as far as I know, especially among these high-brow types. Sure, they could have actually loved their spouse. I don't doubt the possibility. But money is money, and it makes people do the most horrible things sometimes.
It's your house. You can paint the whole place pink if you want, and there's not much he can do.
The somber expression she had changes to a look of
I
contempt.
could, but we are husband and wife. Equal partners in marriage, Marianne, though I can see that you don't understand. This is his home as much as it is mine. I'm not going to go behind his back over a room. And how dare you suggest that?
How do I even talk her down without causing further offense? It's in my attempt to shake off my own drama that I end up tripping right into theirs. Because really, I have no business meddling in the affairs of my clients unless it's involved in interior design or architecture. Yet here I am, opening my mouth and yapping. I do hate to see a good woman down.
That's not what I meant by it. I just mean that maybe you don't have to get the approval of your husband all the time. Or well, okay, fine. I know nothing about married life, Mrs. Wright. You're right about that. But I still think you're allowed your indulgences every now and then.
Of course, my form of indulgence meant buying old slate 78 RPM country records. Records which I don't even dare use with my gramophone. For her, it could very well be buying an entire house.
That's just my take on it. A perfect relationship is as rare as hen's teeth. You got what you got. I mean, you're doing well enough without my advice. Sure, look it.
That looks to placate her somewhat. She looks away and starts to favor the view outside once more with a faraway look in her
Feel
eyes.
free to look around the rest of the house. Everything but the theatre should be open. Just call if there's need of me.
Of course, Mrs. Wright.
I really shouldn't have opened my big mouth in the first place. That sort of thing only gets me in trouble. Keep it clean, keep it simple, and stick to business. That's it. Be professional. But I failed to do that just because of my pretty face. When she turned to leave, she glances back at me before disappearing into the foyer. Look out the window from where she was standing, and I move on, along with nothing but my thoughts and her.
Finally, some peace and quiet.
Thought the old biddy would never leave.
Is that her madness? Is hearing things. I reckon it's the stress, though I don't know what exactly I'm stressed about. If meeting Mrs. Wright has really thrown me for a loop, I'd be worried. If I'm developing some sort of psychosis or disorder, well, I'd call a doctor. And hopefully it isn't that, not right here and not right now. I mean, it could just be the personal talking cricket, the conscience, so to speak. And I'm only noticing now, though if it is, it isn't very helpful. Pushing the dilemma of voices in my head aside, I go back to work. But I can barely make it a few steps before everything tilts and shifts. I don't really stumble, but it feels like I'm being thrown off my feet and the rest of the world just follows. Though my feet stay firmly on the ground, and even if I stay mostly upright, I feel like I've been heaved and put off balance. I have to close my eyes in the hopes of willing the sudden sense of vertigo away, but when I open them, well, I don't feel any less sick because of the sight that greets me. Blood dripped from the walls and the ceiling, pooling downwards and seeping into the curtains and the carpet. The wave of nausea, stronger than the last, hits me along with the overpowering stench of blood and gore. I want to bolt. The rational part of my head is telling me to flee. And I would have gladly done it if asked, if only I didn't hear
I'm
her.
here, Marianne. Come on. I have something to show you.
I could have ignored it, would have ignored it, if I only heard it in my head. But I swear at this time it's coming from one of the rooms. Much further into the study, and I feel compelled to pay attention. I just can't turn around and leave. Not when it's her. I don't even think as I follow the sound of her voice. Lorraine. Lovely Amanda Lorraine Lasafiona. She was my friend, the only one that I had at St. Sampson's. I was a scholar, the charity case, in a school for privileged and prestigious young girls. They all looked down at me, if they cared to look at me or acknowledge my presence at all. All except
Oh,
her.
stop your crying. You know better than to listen to Maeve. Why, I ought to teach that butterface a lesson.
Wait, no, lass! I don't want you getting into trouble with the sisters again!
Relax. It's not like I'm going to stomp her and her lackey's arses flat like last time.
Come on, let's just go back to our dorm room. I don't want to be on my Tobler while you go get yourself punished.
You'll be fine. Gip's there with you.
Lorraine was there when I needed her, though my highs and lows. Having her as a friend made being in a strange school away from my father all the more tolerable. She saw this poor, helpless girl who kept down and shunned by everyone else, and being the kind soul that she was, she rescued me. So brave, so beautiful. She was something else.
I'll eat all the chocolates stashed away in your closet if you go.
I can get more. Just don't go complaining to me if you get a tummy ache because of that.
Well, you don't want to get detention on a weekend, do you? It's a Friday. We can go to town and have some karaoke. And we can have a go at druids and demons again. You're not going to miss that just because of Maeve, are you?
Sometimes I question what I did to deserve a friend like her. In the darkest corner of my mind, where treacherous thoughts lurked, I thought that she only felt sorry for me. Maybe she was being a good Samaritan offering a helping hand. And perhaps I had been too selfish to return the
You
favor.
have a point. I'll just kick her arse on Monday then.
That's not what I mean!
I know what you mean, Em.
Wait, where are you going? You just told me you wouldn't cause trouble.
I still have something to do. Don't worry, it's not like I'm going to burn down her dorm room or something criminal like that. I'm just going to talk to her. Maybe I'll make it so that her room smells like a dog's air biscuit. That'll make it an excellent weekend. I'll see you in a bit, Marion. Lots of tumblers.
Because when she told me that she loved me, I couldn't admit that I felt the same way. Not to her, and not even to myself. It was wrong. I was taught that way. Husband and wife, one man and woman. Unclean, impure. I prayed for her and I, for our sins and for salvation. I wanted to apologize for disregarding her feelings so callously. It must have been like a slap to the face for her. But life had gotten in the way. Exams, which were trivial in hindsight, took top priority. I had to keep my grades up to keep my scholarship for my father. I told myself I would apologize to her when those were over, that I needed to focus and not let anything distract me. It had been easy when she avoided me like the plague. She was upset, I get that. I thought I had time to make things right,
At
but
7 in the morning, students found a fifth year dead. Assumed to have fallen from her dormitory window.
they told us that it was an accident. That was the official statement. But I knew better. She was dead because of me.
Maeve had a hook and I kicked the bucket, didn't she? Ding dong, the witch is dead!
She had, though she didn't say which, Lorraine.
But at least Maeve had the courage to admit how she felt about me.
I don't even know how long I've been stuck here in a trance. In the mirror, Lorraine smiles at me. She's as beautiful as I remember her. But then I feel bile rise up in my throat as her clean image warps into something she looked like when they found her dead, lying in the cold, hard ground. Good Saint Defana. Great wonders, worker in every affliction of mind and body, help me. I'm seeing things, hearing things, and am I going completely insane? Looking everywhere but at her, I hope and pray that it's enough to will away whatever this is to go away. It doesn't even immediately register in my head that I just can't,
You, on
that
the
I can
other
just
hand,
leave.
can't even look me in the eye.
This isn't real. You're not. You're dead!
I'm dead. Because of you. And you won't even look at me. Look at me.
My breathing quickens and I can feel my heart being torn apart by her words.
So sorry, Lorraine.
Look at me!
I can't take it because she's right, it was my fault. The least I can do is look at what I've done. And Lorraine, broken and bleeding, looks at me with such hate-filled eyes. An unnatural smile stretches across her face and I can only see malice in it. Then she lunges as the mirror ripples around her and the glass parting like the waters surface for her. She grips my shoulders and I can feel her nails dig deep, sharp even though the fabric even through the fabric of my clothes.
There you are.
This one's off, this one's off, this one's
You're
off!
coming with me.
The controller was off. Sorry. Let's try that again.
You're coming with me.
Okay. How am I supposed to do this?
You're coming with me.
Ah, so close. This is hard. Okay, my hands are getting too tired. Hold on, I'm gonna have to switch. Oh wait, did I do it? Apologies spill through my lips as tears cloud my vision. But I won't give in to the madness. I did not beat that. I think I accidentally pushed the auto when I adjusted my grip. But that was hard. My fingers, my hands are too tired from work to do that, so maybe it's a lesson there. With every bit of strength I have, I struggle to get away from her. Fear grips and threatens to choke me. I endure, I escape, and without turning back, I stumble back out. In my panic, I don't even care to look where I'm going. With one hand on the wall to steady me, I just hobble as fast as I can away from the study, away from that mirror. Freedom is bittersweet. I'm free from the madness it seems as running out of the hallway reveals it to be a pristine condition. But it means I've turned back on Lorraine again. I have no plans of stopping, not until I know I'm safe. And if that means walking back to Luxborn, as ridiculous as the idea is, then so be it. Someone suddenly grabs a hold of me, however. Fingers digging deep into my shoulder, my heart nearly stops. My body seizes and I nearly scream.
Marianne, you look awful. I mean, not awful, but did something happen? Are you alright?
Mrs. Wright,
Without thinking, I sought comfort seeing that it wasn't her. It's a sudden impulsive thing to do, and had it been in better condition, I wouldn't even dare of doing such a thing. But I didn't know what else to do. Though I know I shouldn't, her warmth, her scent, they grounded me. She is intoxicating.
Marianne, what's going on? Oh, you're shaking like a leaf.
Tremors run through my body as soon as my mind realized I'm no longer in danger. I wanted to cry, scream about what I'd seen, but like a scared child, I couldn't control myself. My mind couldn't reconcile with what I had seen. Remember? I should just write it off as a figment of my imagination, yet I can still feel her nails cutting into my skin.
Are you sick? Should I call for a doctor?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright. Just feeling a little woozy and lightheaded is all.
Let's get you somewhere to sit down then. Come on, don't worry, I have you.
A lie, but a whole lot less complicated than telling her I was attacked by a dead girl. When the feeling of fear eases off, I feel nothing but shame for my actions. I quickly back away as I clear my throat and nod my
I think I've had
thanks.
enough looking around. If it's all right with you and Mr. Wright, I'll meet you outside.
If you're sure, I'll have the car started. Do you need assistance heading downstairs?
I'm all right, ma'am. Just go on ahead and I'll be right there.
It seems to placate her worries, though only for a brief second. Before she heads down, I don't miss the concerned glance she shoots my way, hidden quickly under another smile. I won't begrudge her for it. That worry. The look on my face must have been strange enough to sit on its own. Even I am still reeling from it, from whatever that was. Her voice still whispers in my ears. After all these years, she's still... No, Marianne. Shaking my head over the thoughts that drag in the breath that follow shortly after Mrs. Wright. Whatever has happened in the past is long gone, only memories now. And those are things I can no longer bring back. It's already dark as we make our way out of the mansion. With no lights, we're only illuminating by the headlamps of the Wright's car and the stars above us. So the head of them helped me compose myself much more than several minutes of being alone did. The car's engine is running, yet the two still stand out on the lawn. Mrs. Wright is busy, eyes up to the stars. Mr. Wright, arms crossed, has his eyes down on the ground. It is the crunch of the grass under my heels that brings their attention to me.
About time, what took you so long? A minute longer and I'd think the house swallowed you all up.
Oh, hush, dear. I'm sure she has her reasons. Marianne doesn't seem the sort to idle.
Sorry, I was just checking on something important.
See, business is business and they take time, love. You should know that better than anyone. So, Marianne, what do you think? Are you the woman for the job? I know we already signed papers hiring you, but I want to be 100% sure that you are committed.
I glanced back towards the mansion, knowing what I had seen there, or rather who I thought I saw there, because there is no way. Not to mention how I acted towards Miss Wright, for goodness sake. I should feel the slightest bit hesitant. I was lucky. I've seen enough films to know what happens when a promiscuous woman enters a haunted house. This is my chance to turn it down, make excuses, say that I'm not up to the task, that I need to take care of my old, sick father. Just pay the fine, which is probably outrageous for a contract like this, and let it go. I should turn it down, but for some obstinate reason I can't. In the same manner I haven't let go of her, of the regret that she shadowed me since that day. Much as I hate to admit it, even to myself, seeing her again, the mischievous glint in her eyes, the loose tendrils of her hair curled around her forehead. It's something I've terribly missed, and now that it's here, almost within arm's reach, my father would tell me sometimes you just simply have to go through with it, consequences be damned. Well, I really didn't have any logical reasons to say no. At least not something a client like the Wrights would want to hear from the Prussian designer.
It's certainly an interesting project. You can be sure I'm seeing it through the end.
Such dedication! Oh, I do love the determination.
You were always determined like that, weren't you?
Hearing her voice once again sends a chill down my back. I can't wait for this day to be over. From the mansion and through Anslem, I rode with them in silence, but as soon as we hit city proper, I asked to be dropped off and bid them goodnight. I thought it'd be best if I didn't stay too long in confined spaces with either Mrs. or Mr. Wright. Both seemed to cause me serious trouble, and if the project had been any less interesting or grand, I would have dropped it without a second thought. Would have, shouldn't have, won't. I assured them my place isn't that far off, and I have to fight off the urge to roll my eyes and groan whiskey throws me a little smirk. Even in my own home, peace is elusive, as is sleep. I lie awake thinking of what I saw in that mansion, of who I saw. If I so much as hear a single whisper from her, if I so much as see a wisp of her hair, I'm afraid I'll go mad. But none of that happens, and it makes me feel hollow. For 2 nights I've had trouble sleeping, but it's only one morning when Fig has already let me rest that I'm reminded of what terrifies me so.